Hi, welcome to Public Access. Today, my guest is Sally Sanchez. Sally, you are an advocate with the New Mexico Crusaders, and your organization is an advocacy group for the family members of victims of murder. And your advocacy group, to me, is really special because you connect victims with the resources they need for legal support. You connect them with the resources they need for trauma relief and getting through that. And overall, I think it's really cool that your group is able to do this kind of work together with so many people. You have over, can you tell me how many advocates are there in your in the New Mexico Crusaders?
So we have a total of a little over 1,100 members just in our Albuquerque chapter.
So 1,100 members here in the Albuquerque chapter alone. All of you family members of victims of murder, all of you looking for some kind of idea of justice and peace and reconciliation after this really difficult time. So Sally, about 4 years ago is when you lost a really important family member yourself. And through that entire time, you still have not seen justice. The court process is still ongoing. The feelings of grief and communicating what the system needs to reform, that's still going on. For 4 years, you've been fighting for your son. What's that process been like?
Oh, probably one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. Going up to Santa Fe, fighting for the laws to be changed, creating this advocacy group and helping other families learn the process of what they're about to go through. There wasn't anything there for me when it happened. I've had to learn this all on my own, unfortunately. And that's why I do what I do.
Well, Sally, I mean, I have to just say it takes a lot of strength to speak for your loved ones, for people who need that kind of support, especially because I've seen some of the other advocates in your group and they are at different stages of grief. They are at different places of healing. And not everyone is able to always speak up against the system. So it might be hard for people to understand what that might look like. We were just talking before we started rolling. There's this incredibly strange emotion of you're dealing with grief and heartbreak, and you've dealt with heartbreak in a really extreme way. You've dealt with broken heart syndrome before, but you've also been in a place where you have to deal with the frustration of people who aren't delivering things that you need. What is that like? What's the thing that you encounter first in this injustice in that part of the system?
So the judicial system is definitely built for the criminals. I've learned that really quick. Victims and victims' families have very minimal rights in the judicial system, and it's hard to navigate that, and it's hard to get families to understand that justice doesn't always come in the way that we would like it, because the system is not built for us.
When you say it's built for criminals, help me get some context on what that feels like. As someone who now, you're representing your son here, who can't speak for himself anymore, he can't defend himself. You're fighting for your family members, and you're feeling like the people who have done this are actually the ones benefiting from that system. Where does that come from? How do you feel that way?
So we'll start off with in the DA's office, right? It's hard to get them to understand what we're feeling, what we're wanting. A lot of plea deals come out of the district attorney's office, and to the families, that's not fair. We, the families, have the life sentence, because for the rest of my life, I never get to see my son. I don't get a hug. I don't get a phone call. And yet these murderers are getting plea deals, and they get out in 5 to 18 years, and they get to build their life and go forward. It should be a life for a life, an eye for an eye. That's what I believe. That's how I feel. they took something from me, and they should have their life taken as well. And I'm not saying by murder, but I do believe that if you take a life, you need to spend the rest of your life in prison. You don't have the right to be out on the streets living amongst all of the normal citizens who obey by the law. It's not fair.
I can't imagine what it's like to be going through your loss and to try to find some reconciliation and to be dealing with people who are in the justice system but are likewise elected officials, and they make those kind of decisions based off of what they think is the best for their election. Do you find that that is sometimes the thing you're dealing with, where you're talking to a DA and you're trying to see if they can find justice for your family members, but they're kind of working towards political motives the entire time?
That's exactly what it is. I mean, let's take Sam Bregman. He was appointed to the Second Judicial, and one of the things that he came out and said first and foremost is that he was not going to be looking to be, running for that position, and that he just wanted to go in and do the job and be done. And that switched, and all of a sudden here comes all these plea deals because he wants his record to look good, because here he is campaigning, right? And so now he can campaign that he has, all these convictions. Well, they're not really, they're convictions, but they're not really, because they're plea deals. And that's not fair. That's not fair to the families to have all of these plea deals going out the door. I think that they should have asked for more money in their budget to take these murderers to trial, but it's all broken promises. And that goes for in every legislation position. It's all broken promises.
So to make sure I understand then how a plea deal can kind of feel like injustice to someone who's in your shoes, it's that really these individuals would like to have some court cases that they've been successful with under their belt that looks good for their career, and a plea deal is a really quick and efficient way to get that court completely settled. It gets it under your belt, and you can essentially move on to whatever the next thing is. But you don't get to move on, do you?
No.
Wow. How has that been like in your process? There was we can't talk much about your situation because while it was 4 years ago, you're still looking for justice. That process is still ongoing for you. Correct. And recently, the only thing we can mention is it ended in a mistrial because because the jurors were simply not in a position there to help you, and that's hard. That has to be difficult to have all of these steps going through, and you can't talk about your case too much. You can't talk about the details. The only thing you know is that the court itself wasn't handled properly. Was there a plea deal offered in your situation? Where? So
I can tell you that there are 5 people that are involved in my son's murder. There are 2 females and 3 males. I can tell you that 3 of the 5 have been given plea deals, and 2 were on trial.
And as just as someone who's advocating for your family here now, how does the plea deal make you feel? And do you feel like that is in any way justice for your son or justice against those who have perpetrated it?
I didn't agree with one in particular plea deal, but again, I don't have a say in what they do. They make the decisions on who gets plea deals and who doesn't, and it's pretty much we just have to swallow it.
Well, that's not something that's average with the legal system either. If someone steals my car, I have the ability to go back and work with whatever investigation's going on, and if it's found, I have every right to bring my own defense for that. But your son doesn't have the chance to defend himself here. You're the one who's really representing your son in that case. Do you feel like that's how it's been? Do you think like you are the one who is walking with the police system in order to find justice for your son? Or do you feel like they really have this case and you're along for the ride? Is that more of the relationship?
For me, with my son, I was very involved with, from the police investigation you know, all the way up to now. I have a meeting with my DA on Monday by Zoom to discuss his case moving forward. I had an amazing detective who was on my case and who actually listened to us. And most families are not that fortunate. Most families are left in the dark on where they're at with the whole investigation process. I was able to help our DA by giving him some information that that I seen with my son's, you know, email accounts and stuff, and that was actually kind of what helped them to go in the direction that they did. I don't think that with the district attorney's office, I mean, like I said, not having a say in, you know, the plea deals, I think we should be consulted, you know, and our concerns should be validated and listened to, and not all families get that.
I know you suggested at the beginning, one of the ways we describe justice is this idea for eye for an eye. That's a very old code idea that you referenced there. And I think for me, I always struggle with this idea of justice because I'm not a very harsh person in my own life. I've also never had to deal with the kind of grief and loss you're going through. Where do you get to as a family member of a victim, as a victim advocate, to try to understand where is mercy, where does forgiveness come, but where does justice and where does responsibility come in? How do you weigh those factors as a family member? That seems very difficult.
So for me, I am very much for and believe in second chances for people. There are people who make mistakes and who deserve that second chance to redeem themselves, you know. But I also believe that once you cross the line of taking a life, there is no going back. If you don't have respect and value for a human life, then there is no redemption. I'm not at the point of forgiveness, and I know that that is what our Lord tells us. I believe in my faith, but I'm not there yet. And I'm not there because I'm still in the process of the judicial fight. And I think that's going to take time.
Well, you can't, I think, forgive anybody if there's not responsibility. And 4 years later, it doesn't sound like you've had a lot of responsibility. And like you've said, this isn't something, I mean, that only you go through. There's so many family members who are part of the Crusaders, and we have some incredibly high murder rates in our city.
Yes, we do.
What is this process like then at scale? You specifically have mentioned you have a detective that you were able to work with that was kind and helpful in the process. You have a DA who at least seems somewhat responsible to help your case in this scenario because of how it's played out. Is that always the case? How do these families feel? I mean, what is the average experience in that regard?
So I can tell you that the majority of our families had problems with the investigators on their child's case. We have quite a few families that still have no idea who took their loved one. They're unsolved. We have families who have been given nothing but plea deals on people that are, you know, either 2 or 3 other people involved, and all of them are getting plea deals. And I don't know how the DAs decide which one gets a trial and which ones just get nothing but plea deals. I can tell you that I think that I'm probably one of the most fortunate ones, but I've also just been very vocal from day one. And I want to know, I'm going to be involved. This was my child.
But let me make sure I understand then you're right there, which is you're saying that 4 years ago, you've been fighting this entire time. There's been difficulties, there's a mistrial, and your case is the fortunate one, though. You feel like you've had the best case fighting for you here.
I do.
Compared to some of the other people that you know that you fight with in the Crusaders.
Correct.
That's just the level of incompetence that's coming from our investigators and our district attorneys. That's where we're at delivering justice to people.
Correct.
Your organization, do you see a way forward for your family members who are a part of it? Do you see steps forward? Is it just about grief and recovery? Is there a place to go?
I think that once we can change some laws and hold criminals accountable for their actions, I think only then can we actually see some justice for these families. And that's all they want. They want answers. They want justice. Their loved one was taken, and in a violent way. It is a totally different type of grief that we deal with. And there's days that we're depressed and down. There's days that we're angry as all get up. And there's days that we might be able to smile and just share a memory about our loved one and laugh. That aspect of our life is never going to change. We will forever deal with the grief and the life that we were thrown into, because we didn't ask for this life. It was thrown at us. And we do the best that we can to survive it. And as the Crusaders, we support each other. We, offer advice when somebody has a question in our group. We show up for court hearings when we can for each other. We honor our loved ones, especially on their birthdays and their angelversaries. That's what we call it, on the day of their death, right? They became angels, so it's their angelversary, and we honor them. We'll never let them be forgotten.
That's who you brought with you to the interview here today, actually.
Correct.
This is Tony, right?
This is my Tony Bear.
Tony Bear. Well, tell me about Tony Bear.
So Tony Bear was given to me on my birthday as a birthday gift. And he had a voice recording in here from a video that I had posted of him and I. And so I took this bear with me to Arizona because I had a meeting with a medium. I wanted to try to connect with my son. I wanted to see that he made it to heaven, right? And so when I walked into that lady's house, we sat down and she says, I have a young male here waiting to talk to you. She says, but he keeps saying, that's me, that's me. What is he talking about? And so I explained to her that this had his voice in it. And so I know that my son connected with the bear, which made it even more special to me. So I did eventually change out his voice to a voicemail that I have. He has a heartbeat. And Tony Bear gets dressed the way that my son would dress, with the sunglasses and even just regular glasses, because my son wore glasses, and he has probably about 10 different pair of shoes. He has everything from sweats to shorts to pants and all different kinds of shirts and a suit and jerseys, just whatever the way my son would dress, I tried to dress him.
And as I understand it, this isn't just your Tony Bear. Your organization, if they go to the Cottonwood Build-A-Bear, they can get a bear with the New Mexico Crusaders shirt on it as well, and they can.
Well, we make the shirts. We buy them just plain white, and we have a lady who makes the shirts for all of our events, because we do different shirts for our events. And so this one was probably one of our first ones, and then on the back you will see that it has his picture on it and his name. So we do use the Build-A-Bear shirts, but we do these with our lady who makes all of our shirts. But they can go and get an outfit and mention the New Mexico Crusaders for Justice, and they get a 10% discount.
Well, that's what I think is really cool, is it's not all, there's this justice aspect woven into it where you're dealing with a broken system, but your family members and you're remembering loved ones. So a big part of it is finding ways to remember, and I really like the idea of having a bear with your son's memory just embedded into it. That's beautiful.
He's my emotional support bear. Like I said, I don't leave home without him. He goes with me everywhere. He's done every interview that I've ever done, and any event that I go to, he's right next to me.
He's a very nice guest and very considerate, so I'm glad he was able to come today.
Thank you.
Another way that you guys help people remember, though, is you're having an event this Tuesday, in fact.
Correct.
For I forget the exact name of the Day of Remembrance. You have to remind me.
So it's the National Day of Remembrance for Homicide Victims.
And you're doing a candlelight vigil.
Correct.
This Tuesday for that. Tell me a little bit about that event.
So we're going to be at New Beginnings Church off of Montgomery, across from the Loveless Women's Hospital. It's going to be from 6 to 8. I have created a video that will play in the background, and it has 310 this year faces of victims, you know, that have been taken by gun violence. And so we'll have the video playing in the background. Families will get to have the opportunity to go up to the podium and to speak about their loved one and share some good memories. And that's what it's about. It's honoring them. So that's our day to just share memories. I'm going to be giving out red roses to all of the moms who attend, and then we'll do the candlelight vigil.
Well, that's I really like that you guys put events like that together, especially for this community, which I think needs as much support and ability to come together as they can. And as the New Mexico Crusaders, what do you find as this kind of, what always surprises you when you still find more people who want to be part of this group? You know, what are you always learning about people as they come into this organization?
Whew, that's a good one. You know, every family's different. And some people come in and, you know, they're just angry and trying to just understand why, right? And there's others who want to be the advocates, and they want to stand up, and, you know, they want to take over doing a chapter for us, or want to help us plan events. And so for everybody, it's different. Everybody has their own reason for wanting to join us, but I think in the end it's all about just being with people who know your pain. Because to be honest with you, I love my family, but they don't understand my pain. And it's hard when your community tells you it's time to move on. There's no moving on. This is something that we will feel and go through for the rest of our lives. So it's good to be around other people who understand exactly what we're feeling, and they can say what they need to, and there's nobody telling them, get over it, move on.
Right. Well, you know, you say every family is very different with how they approach this. I can imagine you're very different in the way you've approached it too, because you show a lot of strength. I think it would be rather cruel to tell someone who's going through your situation to move on in any right, but you've shown an incredible amount of strength to stand up, to speak for your son, to fight for his case, but also to find other people who need your support, who clearly are not in the place of understanding where you are. You've been through the system a lot longer. You've been fighting this a lot longer. So I can imagine you're an incredible help to those around you.
I try to be.
What's it like, Sally? I mean, how do you get to the point where you decide, I have to fight for my son, I have to fight for my family, I have to fight for what's right, but I clearly have to fight for other people too. Correct. How do you get there? How do you fight for so many people? 300 faces, that's not a lot, that's not a small amount of faces.
Well, and that's only what I was able to pull off from the gun memorial site. There's a lot more, believe me. There has been a lot more homicides in Albuquerque and the state of New Mexico. But I'm not a selfish person, and I'm not just going to fight for my son. I'm going to fight for all of the families that are coming in after me, because I know that they want the same thing that I do, and that's justice. We want accountability. And I think once we can get there, then it'll be different in the fact that families know that their loved one is going to matter.
I like that a lot. I'm curious, Sally. You know, you have so many branches to what your organization can do, whether it's advocacy, whether it's helping a family through the process. What would be the most important thing for my viewers to take away from your organization? Because a lot of people might not know this. I don't know this world very well that you go through. I don't know your struggle emotionally, and I don't know the system that you're trying to get through and all the reform that you see that needs to be made. What do my viewers really need to take away from the Crusaders?
That even though we've been thrown into a life of hell, we're still strong. And we will fight not only for our loved ones, but for all the future ones, because you can't say it's never going to happen to me, because it can't. There's no value of human life out there anymore, and you see that every day there's a homicide. Every day someone else is joining this life that they never asked for. And I just want them to know that all they have to do is reach out, and we're there.
Well, the New Mexico Crusaders for Justice, you guys are a pretty large organization. You have chapters all over New Mexico. You're telling me in Rio Doso, northern New Mexico, here in Albuquerque. If anyone needs to find your organization, where can they find you?
So we're on Facebook, definitely on Facebook. We're on Instagram, but we also have a website. It is nmc4j.org.
All right. Well, thank you for taking the time to talk with me, Sally. I know this isn't an easy conversation, but you're a very good advocate, and I think you're very strong for talking to your family the way you do.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We're good here.
Thanks.